Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is a video where we're going to integrate Expo SQLite into an Expo application. A lot of people sleep on it on SQLite. I think SQLite is a pretty powerful database that can be leveraged in a lot of ways on mobile applications. I also think, walking through this process of building an application using SQLite, you can touch on a lot of important things around building applications with Expo. So I will also, in this application, cover integration of modals. So we'll use Expo Router modals, and then we will also use the tab layout from Expo Router. I am not going to use a tab template to start the application. I'm just going to start from a base app template that just has Expo Router installed, and then we'll build the tab layout on top of it. We'll add the modal on top of it. We'll add SQLite to it, and then we'll have the application. So this way you can kind of see the whole process from the beginning to the end, instead of just getting this template dropped on you with a whole bunch of stuff going on inside it that doesn't make sense. I'm just going to focus on the basics. So hopefully you'll stick around until the end and you enjoy this video and you'll share it with other folks. Thanks. All right, so let's get into it. So first, we're just going to create a basic application. And so when you use this command and pick create Expo app latest, you can put this example flag on the end and it'll list all the different examples you can get generated. For those you didn't know, I just put it there. So let's install this. And so what we're going to do is, like I said, we want a blank one, but there's one that already has the router stuff set up. Basic, just the basics. So actually, I thought there would be a lot more, but there wasn't. Oh, yeah. SQLite. All right, so now everything is set. So let's switch into the directory. cd app SQLite. We know that we are going to use SQLite, so let's just install it now just to get the installation stuff out of the way. Okay, so now we have SQLite, and then the tab stuff needs no additional installs, and the modal needs no additional install. So we have everything that we need installed already. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to follow along with the documentation so that you can see how I figured out how to get this done. And then you'll also have all the references to the documentation that was used if you want to expand upon this. Let's see if we get our basic app running. This might take a minute because you have to get the emulator and everything up and running. We have our basic app, and let's hop into some code and start to figure out how to get the rest of this application going. Right, so see it says here set new arc enabled true when React JSON. So let's do that when we get inside there. Let's open up another tab. The first thing we want to set this new, actually I'll just move to the window. First thing we want to do is set this new architecture flag that you mentioned. JSON. All right, so we have our app, nothing's happening. And then now, like I said, we're going to follow documentation the whole way. So we are going to build a tabbed application. You can see the layout that we need, and we certainly don't have yet. So let's start by creating the folders that we need. So now we have the tabs grouping there. And let's follow their approach. They say, first thing, let's create our app layout. And we will just copy it. That's our app layout. Just kind of let's explain a little bit what's going on for those who aren't sure. This will be the default layout that the application will use. Inside of it, we created a stack, and inside of this stack, we're going to have this tabs. And what this will actually be, it will be another stack that actually contains the two tabs. We're saying header shown as false so that we can use the header for each one of the specific tabs on the top of the page. You can see here, it says that automatically created this JSON file, this tsconfig JSON file. It's like using TypeScript, but don't have dependencies installed, so we went ahead and did all that stuff for me. We have our attribute layout. Now we need to create a layout for the tabs. We will go into tabs. We will create a new file. Oh, I see the problem. The problem is I already put this layout file inside of tabs, which I did not want to do. It should be at the top level. So let's move this thing back up to app. And then, right, so now I can actually put my layout inside of tabs. And then we'll just copy what they have here and we'll talk through it. Okay. So now we have a layout. Yeah, the app isn't happy because it can't find all the routes. So we'll get the routes resolved in a second. So we're going to use Font Awesome so we can get the little icons at the bottom. We basically have this new layout here, which is going to have two tabs. And one's going to be a new index page that we will add, and the other will be a settings page that we will add. Let's see how they handle that here. Yeah, we're just going to put placeholders in there for now. So inside the tabs directory is where we need to add these two files. So let's add our index. And since for now they're pretty much going to be the same, tab home, and we'll just duplicate this file. Okay, paste. And so we have our layout, our tab, and our setting. Let's go back to my tabs doc. And that should be what we need to get our tabs. Let's see. There's our layout. I mean, here's our app. It says I'm very happy. Let's reload. And we have our application with two tabs. Let me change that title. Go to our settings. All right, so we have our tabs with two settings. Okay, so the next thing from a UI perspective we want to do is we want to add a button here to open our modal, because the idea is that we're going to be able to click on our button, enter information, save that information to SQLite database, and then the list will appear here. So but we want to focus on the UI stuff first. So for now, we will add the modal. So let's hop back, and once it's set, like I said, I'm going to stick to the documentation here so that you're clear on where I'm getting all of my ideas and how I'm solving this problem. So this is the link, and I'll also include the links. This is the link for modals. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our app directory, and right here at the same level as our layout, we're going to add a modal file, right? And we're adding it at this level because if I put it inside of tabs, it would show up at the bottom here. Also, this is just a good place for it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to modify our tab stack, but our root stack here to add another screen. Then you can see the presentation is modal. That means we want it to kind of slide up like modal slide up. We've created that here. Also, let me just show here. See, this is what the documentation says, option presentation modal. And then we have we're not going to use our link component to navigate to it. Like I said, we're going to create a button, but then we'll just copy this basic text for our modal dialog for now. So we've copied that text, and then let's go back to our modal, and let's drop it in here. So now we have our modal in. Notice it's not showing anywhere yet. It should not be showing. We're going to add our button up at the top. So let's hop over to our index file, okay, which is our home file, which is kind of empty. But we need our button to appear up here in the top corner. Let's wrap this whole thing in a view. We're not going to style it quite yet. And then inside of here, we want to add a screen option. So our stack screen, and then in our options, we don't want a header shown, but we're going to do header right. And so first, let's add our function here. We'll just let it put some dummy code in there for now, and then we'll correct it. And let's add our import for our stack. Right, so you see it's kind of added the header right to the corner. That's kind of ugly. That's not really what we want. So we'll clean that up. And then also, let's kind of get this style moved to the right place, at least for now, so that we get our content shown. Right. So now we have our content shown. We have our header right. Let's use an icon. That's why we're going to, I think Font Awesome comes with this. Yeah. So Font Awesome. And then I have some code here to add the imports. Let's add the router import. Now there's our modal screen. Let's do a little work to kind of do some cleanup there. Play button, keep it simple, but just put something there. So now we have our header showing. Let's just put some close buttons on here so we can kind of close this modal when it needs to be closed. And like I have some code here too, so we don't have to watch me type some buttons on our modal. And I'll walk through what we got. Okay, so we have our safe area view. We set our title for our modal. We put some styling here for our buttons so that our buttons kind of appear in an appropriate place. And then for right now, when you just click either of them, it'll just take you back. So let's see if we have that working. Cancel, save, bring us back. So we have our modal working. We have our tab working, and I think that that's the basics for the UI. So next, getting let's move on to getting SQLite installed. And so let's go back to our documentation, and then now right here. So we've already installed SQLite, and the approach, it's like let's do a. We don't need to do any of these changes for the plugin because we're not going to do any extra stuff. If we go back to our app.json, you can see that when we did the install, it put the plugin in there for us. So let's just hop down. We'll cover the basic CRUD operations when we get to them, but for now, what we want to do is we're going to use this hook. We're going to use this use SQLite context hook to get access to the database, but we need to wrap everything with this SQLite provider. So let's do that now. We actually need to wrap the whole stack. And we'll do our SQLite provider. That is not it. So let's just look here. SQLite provider. We'll just copy this line. SQLite provider. We're going to just, we don't want to migrate. We want to create. And then we'll create our function here. Our database is users. And we want name and email. One, txt. Hide this to give you some space. We want to import our database. No, actually, we don't need to import our database. This is getting passed to us. And so let's set our type on here. And then this is incorrect. This should, if we go back to our documentation, should be an async call. This is an execute async. And this will create the users table if it doesn't exist with a name and an email field. And then let's add a comment so we know it's working. Let's go back to our project. Let's rebuild. Look at our console log. So we have it's creating a database if needed. All right, so we now know that we created our database. Let's actually look into adding items to our database. And so to do that, we need to update our modal. So let's go to our modal dialog. Right now, we just have our two buttons. Let's add two fields. For our fields, we have our name and our email. And get our imports. Let's add all missing imports. And then let's do our text input fields. Let's copy a little bit of code to get us jump started here. Let's see what our models look like now. Got a couple of imports missing. Let's get our imports in here. We have a bunch of styles too, so let's get the styles that I created. Let's get them in here. And then we have our handle save function. We'll get to that later, but let's put the placeholder in. And then we know we need to go back on the save. So let's route it back. Let's see what it looks like. All right, so we get our name and our email fields that we capture. Our cancel takes us back. And right now, even our save takes us back. Okay, let's add the code to actually insert an entry into the database. So you see we have our email field, which we're setting with our set email, our name with our set name. So let's go up here and let's get our database from the context. So database, like context, that goes our database. And then in here, database, execute async. So let me see exactly how we want to do this. We want to do a run async. So we're going to insert into the user's database that got created if it doesn't exist. And then it's a prepared statement. So we're passing in our name and our email, and our name and our email values come from our text input here. And let's just do a simple try catch, just in case there's any errors. All right. Let's do a couple of samples so we have something to show in this list. So let's go here, body, right? Got no errors on our terminal. Now we'll actually see if it works. What we'll do is we'll pull some data to render here. So let's go back to our index, our tab home. First thing we need someplace to hold a local state variable for our data. So let's say const use state. We're going to put a type on this array. So this should be ID, which is a number, name, which is string, and email, which is also string. Let's fix this. Let's do this because I'm going to use that a lot. Let's just say type, type. Then we'll just change this to be user type. That's an array of user types, and then we need our function load post. So we're going to get our database from, let's add that up here, use SQLite. See, GitHub Copilot's kind of learning a little bit from what I've built already. So we're going to get our database, and this should not be all async. This should be get all async. User type, we get our results back. Since we set our user type here, the result will be the appropriate type, and then we set our array. Then the next thing we do is, since we need this function load data to run every time this page is in focus. So Expo Router provides us with huge focus effect, which it can call for us. But what we want to do is we need this thing to kind of resolve race conditions and such. We need it to be wrapped in a use callback, which thankfully GitHub Copilot already recognized for us and kind of typed out the code for me. And now let's import this use callback. So now what should happen is every time this page is brought into focus, it will call load data. Load data will search the database. It will get the result. It'll do set data, and then our flat list should render it. But now we need flat list to use this data. So let's take our data from here, assign it to flat list. So we get our data, what's been added to the database. Then we're going to render. It looks like there's extra test data that was in here before. Apologies. Let's wrap this whole thing. Let's prepare ourselves for what's to come. There you go. This Copilot's getting pretty smart, and we're going to return this view. Let's item, need to get an item. What's missing? There we go. Let's try and add another email because I don't know why it has this in there 3 times. New at mail.com. So body, again body, then plain body, then new. All right, so it's saving the entries. Let's even clean this up a little bit. So what we've done is, you can see the UI is that we separated everything out. So I now have this edit button, which will allow me to edit any one of these entries. Well, let's put some quick styles down here for this button. See what that looks like. And then text, white, make it bold. Set that button. Let's text a bit smaller, and let's center the text in the button. Yeah, not the prettiest button, but it'll do. So now that we've done that, the other thing you'll notice here is that we've added this functionality to call the modal dialog. And the idea here is that when we call the modal dialog, we want to pass an ID value. And so we're going to pass this ID value so we know that when so like right now, when I click, it just opens it and there's no content. But I click the edit button, so I need the data from the item that I clicked to appear here, and I need the item to be this modal to be in edit mode, because we don't want it to save the new item, we want it to insert the new item. So now we have it passing the ID over. Let's go into our modal and handle that. And so what we can do is inside, and first we're going to need another function, update, and then let's put some other state variables here, const edit mode, set edit mode, and we need to be able to get the parameter. So let's put that up here, ID, and we're going to do use local search param, and that will get the ID off of there. We want to set our edit mode to false. Then what we want to do is, when we start the app, we're going to use effect. If ID is set to edit mode, then this is going to depend on the ID. So we check our search param, we get our ID. If there's an ID, we set edit mode to true. Now we know we're in edit mode. And then if we are in edit mode, then we need to load the current data. So we'll say load data, and then now we need a function to load data for edit mode. It should be get first async. So we want to select name and email address from users where the ID equals the ID is passed in. Also remember that the IDs are getting passed in as a string, so we need to parse this into an int. Probably should be doing some better error checking, but this will get it done, what we need to get done. Let's force this. do add string. Well, that will get us the data. And now we have our data loaded. And what we're doing is we're setting the name and the email based on the result that we're getting from here. We need to do our handle update. So let's get some output also like we did on the handle save. So we're going to do our async call. We're going to update based on the ID. We're going to parse the int to get our ID. We're going to log if it's saved, and we're going to go back. We're just going to write a console log error if that error happened. And then now down inside of here, let's make some changes. So for this, we're going to say if edit mode, and this should be update. If not, then the button should say save. And then on the save, kind of the same thing. Edit mode, and we want to call update, we're going to call handle update. Otherwise, we're going to call handle save. And let's see what we get. So we have this body here, it's twice, so let's edit this. So body, edit, update, and body edit was updated. And then let's make sure creating a new one it works. I already had a new mail. Let me, let's wipe that after new. So on handle save, I think we could clear everything. Yeah, we'll just clear everything afterwards. Let's try that again. Cancel new again new mail.com. Save new again at mail.com. Try to have a new one. Everything's cleared out. Cancel. Let's edit new again. New again, please. So that's all working. One last thing is let's add a delete button so I can actually delete an entry. So we'll go back to our main root, add another button. But this is, I'm not going to spend as much time on these buttons anymore. Maybe duplicate the whole button. So let's copy that. And let's put this all in a view so you can get this to line up better. Okay, let's see if we can do anything about these buttons. All right. Can I fix? I'll take a quick stab. Let's do this. Okay, so where they're supposed to be. Now I just need them. Let's. This is where my tailwind. I'm like I said, I'm much more comfortable with tailwind. So manage the work, and then now let's just get a little gap. Okay, like I said, styling is not my forte, especially when you're not using tailwind. All right, so now we have our delete button, and on our click, I don't want to go here. I just want to delete the item. So let's just say handle delete, pass the item ID. Up here, we'll say const, delete, and we get access to our database. We run their async command, delete from users where the ID is the ID that is passed in. This ID is still a number here because it wasn't passed as a parameter. We will delete the item, and then we will reload the data. So let's see. Delete seems to be working. So we have everything that I wanted to accomplish in this video. I will probably do a second video where that's what the settings page is for. I'll show how to delete the database. I'll show how to export the database and share it, and how to import the database. And do some more cleanup in here, add some better error checking, maybe create a hook for all these database calls because they're kind of scattered all over the place. Basically, just architecturally clean things up a bit. Hopefully you stuck around to the end. Thanks, and I'll chat with you later. Bye now.